Today, in this lecture, we are going to study the issues of governance and globalization. So, the first issue is expansion of normative mechanism and globalization of institutions. One of the effects of globalization is the increasing amount of rules placed upon businesses. In global marketplace, however, these changes can inadequate to meet the needs, along with the general in, inten, intensified, intensified globalization of social relation in contemporary history has come to unprecedented, unprecedented expansion of regulation that covers you can say um, parliamentary and constitutions. Um, on the other whole, however, the global governance remains weak relative to pressing current needs of global policies. Shortfalls in normal standings, legal foundations, material deliveries, democratic credentials, and leadership have together like they have been all uh, gathered together to generate a large legitimacy. On other level, there is need to set up in all spheres an increasing number of networks and institutions operating a global scale. Proposal and initiatives have been developed to various sources like political parties, unions, regional authorities, and members of parliaments. Formulation and objectives. One of the conditions for building a whole democratic governance should be the development of platform for citizen dialogue on the legal formulation of world governance and the harmonization of objectives. The legal formulation could take the form of global constitution according to the you can say according to global constitution results from a process for the institution of global community will act as a common reference for establishing the order of rights and duties applicable to United Nations agencies and the other multilateral institutions such as International Monetary Funds and World Bank, the World Trade Organization, as for formulating objectives, the necessary but insufficient ambitions of United Nations. United Nations Millennium Development Goals, which aim to safeguard mankind and the planet, and the huge difficulties in implementing them, illustrates the inadequacy of institutional in initiatives that do not have popular support for having failed to invite citizens to take place in the elaboration process. Furthermore, the global constitution must clearly express a limited number of overall objectives that are to be the basis of global governance and are to guide the common action of UN agencies and multilateral institutions, where the specific role of each of these is subordinate to pursue pursuit for these common objectives. Claim purpose objectives are you can say that instituting the conditions of sustainable development, reducing, you can say, inequalities, and establishing lasting peace while respecting diversity. Reforming international institutes. Is the UN capable of taking on the heavy responsibility of managing the planet's serious problems? More specifically, can the UN reform itself in such a way to be to be able to meet this challenge at a time when the financial crisis of 2008 is rising, the same question posed by the climate disaster of previous years regarding the unpredictable consequences of disastrous human management. Can international financial institutes be reformed in such a way as to go back to their original task, which is you can say, which is to provide financial help to the countries in need? Lack of political lack of political will, you can say, and citizen involvement at the international level has also brought about the submission of international institution to the neoliberal agenda. A particular financial institutes such as the World Bank, the International Monetary Funds, and the World Trade Organization gives an account to this development. While out of that, the need for international institutions like the IMF and the World Bank and the WTO has never been. WTO stands for the World Trade Organization. Fine. The World Trade Organization has never been so great, but people trust in them as they have they trust in them as the trust in them has never been so low. One of the key aspects of United Nations reform in the problem of representativeness of the General Assembly. The Assembly operates on the principle of the one state, one vote. Sorry, not note, vote. So that states hugely varying size have the same impact on the vote, which distorts representativeness of results in a major loss of credibility. Accordingly, the General Assembly has lost any real capacity to influence. This means that the mechanism for action and constitutional organization by rich countries have the leading role. The implementation, the implementing a radical form of the UN, the proposes building new foundation that can provide the basis for global democracy and the creation of global social contract rooted in respect and protected in civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights, as well as the recognition of strategic roles in, you can say, international laws. Three gaps in global governance. There is a gap between the increasing needs of global governance in many areas, such as health, lack of authority with the power, and to take actions. Moreover, the gap of in incentive between the need for international cooperation and motivation to undertake it. The incentive gap is said to be closing as globalization provides increasing impe- impetus impetus for countries to cooperate. However, there are concerns that as Africa lags further behind economically, its influence on global governance process will diminish. At last, the participation gap, which refers to the fact that international cooperation remains primarily the affair of government, leaving civil society group on uh, fringes of policy making. Uh, on the other hand, globalization of communication is facilitating the development of global civil society movements.